Hey everyone, welcome back to the Revel Brewing Show. I'm your host Matt Fay, and I'm bringing to you another episode here where we're going to have a talk about all the branding and all the cool stuff that we've done here at Revel. To my right, we've got Jay, our founder.
G'day everyone.
And we've got our head brewer, Matty Cuthbert.
Good to be here, team.
And after about 2 years break, one of our very first guests on the show, we've got Matt Vergotis, our legendary designer.
Cheers, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on, Verg. Mate, it's been quite a journey as we've been using you to create all these amazing artifacts and stuff. So thanks for coming on again. Really appreciate you giving up your time.
No worries.
Awesome. Well, let's dive straight into it. I guess you've been involved with the Revel brand right from the start. It's been quite a journey from the very first time you guys would have traded some emails and stuff. And
how long ago was that?
That would have been early 2017 that all kicked off.
Jeez.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been around.
A lot's happened.
A few times.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's some time. It's a massive journey, and the brand's really evolved. And it's been great to have you along to guide us through that visual component of that.
Yeah, look, it has evolved, but it's still kept that core sort of element. It's all been about that spark. And we've stayed true to it, and there's been quite a few things that have sort of evolved, but it's kind of kept that consistent sort of that feel that we were going for right from the start, which I'm really happy about because sometimes you can stray too far, as things evolve, but no, it just goes to show that we started off right, I think.
I think it's important to acknowledge what that spark is, though. That's why I think it stood the test of time, because it's a spark of passion, for what we do, whether it's creating the brand or pushing the brand or creating the beer for the brand.
Yeah.
It's authentic.
Yeah. And that's exactly how it was the day we designed it. So, and hopefully stays that way.
Yeah. I'd hate to have to redesign it again.
Yeah.
We don't know. We've already done that once.
No more lawsuits on their way.
Oh, well. I think that's another conversation.
I think we covered that one in the first time.
No lawsuit conversations this time. This is the fun one. This is the fun one.
Yeah, let's not get too deep.
Yeah. No, it's good. I love working with this brand, and there's been a lot since that first podcast 2 years ago. Some of the projects have been bubbling away in the background. Took a while to sort of come to light with River Makers, obviously, launching, and the core range that's moving away from the stickers to the core range cans, but. And all the limited release beers that we've been doing. We've been doing you've been busy, Matt.
Yes. It's been a big year.
Yeah. I mean, and with every one of those limited release beers, we've had to create and design a personality to, reflect the beer that's in the can. So that's been a big job.
Oh, I think at times actually making the beer is easier or less work than the design process. So our design, the way we go about it, I think I mentioned this on our little Beer with the Brewer podcast, how far we've come.
Yeah.
Originally it was sort of Jay and I back and forward, and then would bring you in, would go back and forward. So I've tried to tighten that up a fair bit. We now dedicate at least an hour per week to actually attempt to do it properly. There is still a lot of back and forward, but I think it has got a lot better.
Yeah.
And I think it shows in the designs themselves, and I guess the maturity of what we're doing.
Yeah.
How far it has come.
Look, sometimes we nail it really quickly. Sometimes there's a little bit of back and forth.
Yeah.
Verg, in a few words, what's it like going through the Revel design process?
I'm sure he's got a few words.
Hey, do you really want to ask me that question? It depends on who's involved. I'm not saying any more. I'm happy to keep working for you guys. No, it's good. You've got to be passionate about what you're producing, and when that happens, everything's got to be perfect. And I'm always here to make that perfect. And sometimes I'll present something and we'll go around in circles a little bit, or we'll love certain stuff, but it's not quite right. And I appreciate that that's just part of the process. So if we're not nailing it and you're not getting that full on, this is it, then we just work through it until we end up getting it. And we've always done that. And yes, sometimes it takes a little while. Sometimes it happens really quickly.
And I think a cool thing working with you, Verg, is that it's cool to do that push and pull and that kind of tug a rope around where we find the balance of, the creative design with the brief. It's never abrasive. It's all feedback is welcome. There's very little ego in it. It's kind of like, we're equally contributing as a team to a good outcome. And
that's
sometimes
how I
it's
work.
a bit hard to get there. It takes a bit longer than others, as you said. But I think the outcome is always really solid.
Cheers. No, well, look, and that's how I work. I mean, I want my clients to love what they've got. I want it to reflect the company that, they're passionate about, that, the beer that you're passionate about making. I don't want my clients to ever settle for sort of, second-rate designs just because we've gone through an iteration process that hasn't quite resolved after a few goes, So, I mean...
But when we say these things take time, sometimes they take time, right? Like, how long did we spend doing the core rebrand?
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, I guess it's helpful to let people understand there's more than just one person involved in this. Like, there's a lot of people. And when there's a lot of people, like, 6 people can love it, 2 people might not, and it's trying to find that balance of, sometimes you can never make everyone happy, but like we try and get there. But with the core, like, okay, so when we started the core range redesign, so we were moving away from the stickers, and the stickers served a purpose for a while, but as the company evolves and you can afford to print more cans for each different core range beer, it makes sense to move away from the stickers. So it was an opportunity to, I guess, refresh the brand. And I came up, and that gave me the opportunity to leave no stones unturned and go, okay, well, we could take it in this direction or we could take it in that direction. But we ended up coming back to something that really respected the sticker system at the start. So it wasn't too far away from it.
Yeah.
And so we just had the colour band down the bottom, which is where the sticker originally went. So if you can see here, it was like this, and then you had the colour for each core range, and then there was a band of colour. But then I think after that, I mean, we made some other tweaks, like the logo was bigger and there was a few modifications. We lost a couple of the artefacts and made it more about the spark.
What really puzzled me is when you came back and said, look, one of the main things I want to do with this brand refresh is get rid of this weird little Revel.
Oh, don't you start.
Chicken scratching up. I said, I really love that. I don't understand why you want to get rid of it, mate.
I reckon if we put that to the public vote, a lot of people would come back and say, that's great, mate. They would
I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, well,
No, but that was cool. I dug my heels so hard on that because I'm attached to that because I do a lot of lettering and calligraphy style stuff, and
all from, just to give everyone a bit of an insight, is that everything you do with that is hand drawn.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And it's all created uniquely as a class font and a style. So it's something that there's a lot of time and attention that goes into creating.
Yeah, I mean, look, right down to the font that's used on this, and I can call it a font because I made it a font. An interesting fact is I do work for Spotify as well. And that font is an adaptation of a font that I created for Viva Latino, which was a font that would, a typeface at that point in time that would pop up on their video content for, So interesting fact about that.
You learn something new every
font.
day.
Yeah, there you go. You didn't know that.
No, I did not.
I just dropped that.
Yeah, that's good.
On you. Are you happy with that? That's cool. So that actually is, I would have illustrated it first and then digitalized it and all of that. So it's not just, a stock font that someone, that I download and just use across there. So
I did feel bad slightly for a while when we removed it, but it was a fleeting moment.
Oh, yeah. So back to that, the little, what Jay affectionately calls the chicken scratching logo. I originally designed a logo for you guys when I was coming up with Revel. That was a lettering style. And it was all smooth and curvy, and I just thought to myself, and I never showed Jay it. I showed you down the track, like 3 or 4 years down the track, say this was something that I nearly showed and presented to you.
Pretty cool.
And I put a lot of time into that, but then I just thought I'm resting on my skill set, that like my go-to skill set for that. This isn't Revel. Revel needs to be something else. Revel needs to not lean on that I have done for some other breweries as well. And yeah, so we came up with the Spark, and it's all been perfect for that. But I thought to myself, I'm not going to make that, just a wasted, asset that I've created. I'm going to get rid of all the curves, and I'm going to make it all straight edge, so it almost looks like it's lettering that's electric lettering. But turns out he doesn't like it. But
there's a really good shirt.
Yeah,
you did a render on a shirt which looked really rad. I was like, yeah, that's cool.
I think it would work well as just.
We might revisit it.
Yeah, there you
Might
go.
look cool as a tattoo, mate.
I think
Do you have any space left?
Yeah. So look,
Can I rent a space on the brewer's shoulder?
Hey, I'm going to crack this, guys.
Let's do it.
I was sort of waiting for permission, but
This
I
is
still want to be that guy.
It's a bit of a cheers, guys. It's
cheers.
to the foundations of our canning and the stickers.
Delicious.
Beautiful.
But the reason why I was mentioning all that, so we lost a few artifacts from the can when we were
Simplification.
redesigning the core range. So it was so we went in a few different directions, and we liked a couple, and but then we sort of kept coming back to being more authentic to what the can currently is, but just as a printed version on the whole can.
Yeah.
And then I think it was your suggestion. You said, what about a gradient? And
I think that was referred to as the sick fade.
Sick
That was
fade.
when we were actually going through
Dope
all of
fade,
the
it is.
Yeah, the dope fade. Yeah, that was how he referred to that iteration. We're all in favour of the dope fade.
And somewhere a whole bunch of engineers out at Visi Packaging just fell over.
Yeah.
oh man,
It's like they had that sixth or seventh sense where they're like, oh, what's
That's
wrong?
gonna change.
I don't know yet. And then
But it's coming.
Yeah.
So that was a really challenging thing to do, and for people that just look at a can, they must think it's just a gradient, it's just a fade. But doing it on a can, printing on a can, and just the way that printing process whole works, it's not that easy because cans are silver. And where you see white on a can, that's not a white can, it's still a silver can. That's a colour that's laid down. And if I'm getting this correct, the substrate being the silver, you can't have colours overlapping each other. So you have to have a small little gap in between each plate, each different colour. So when you've got
The silver
a
lining.
gradient, okay, and there's spot colours. It's not like CMYK. This is going to go over a lot of people's heads, but it's not like CMYK where you just make a gradient, you print it, and it's printed in 4 colours. That gradient is just one colour, and it's slowly faded out by a series of dots that are big, and they get smaller and smaller. But that problem of the 2 colours not allowing to be overprinted and having a gap makes it tricky with all these little dots and the little gap and then the white that's around it and all of that. So it's kind of challenging, but we got there. It was when we were approaching the sunset haze that we really were testing Visi.
I think we got there 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
We had 3 or 4 different designs for the circular dots and how they would transition between
Yeah.
colours. And we actually got to Visi, which is the large packaging group that do the printed cans. And the feedback that they gave us made us have to change it again. So I think 3 times until we finally got it close to being right.
So every single one of those dots that fades was manually created.
Yeah.
So I had to create a series of dots going upwards and get it at the right distance and then duplicate it sideways just to get that perfect sort of fade. And obviously choosing the colours for each core range affected how that gradient sort of looked on the can.
And to give an indication of what goes on at Visi, those basically it's a mechanical print. It's not a digital print. So there's actually a cloth that gets a light spray of colour that goes over and overlays the can in white, and then the next colour and the next colour and the next colour. So if that cloth is slightly out by, a herring's whisker, those little dots will bleed into each other.
Yeah.
So when we're out there doing the print, we're actually fixing it on the fly and changing the colours and moving things around slightly to get the mechanical print to where it needed to be.
Yeah.
And to say that we probably pushed the boundaries of that mechanical printing process is it's not a long boat at
It
all.
was quite a long day, if I recall.
It was.
I don't think we got all of them in that day either.
No, there's still a couple that are coming out.
Yeah.
So.
And that was interesting there, being there on the day. Like, some people might not realise, so you've gone and taken on what I would consider to be like quite a large project. We've got our limiteds, which we do. I mean, we've got some series here, which we'll talk about later, but we're not talking about oh, that looks good. That's what the beer's meant to say. Yep, cool. And we just go tick, 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 get some labels printed off, and Bob's your uncle. Wouldn't say it's that easy. But in terms of actually then you've gone out and you've had to think about so many things, right? You had to think about, what does this can look like in the fridge? Can this be consistent? Is it who we are? Is it where we're... Because we're also making a real big commitment to print those cans from a financial point of view. So you want to know that everything that you put into that design epitomises our brand, and that people are going to pick it up and it's all going to make sense. And it's no wonder that took a lot of time. But then we even get there on printing day after all of that's done, and we're still tweaking. Like, I can remember, especially with the Sunset Haze, I think we're all like, yeah, it looks pretty good. And then I just stood back and I just went, I can't see that. I can't see the writing from 5 metres away.
Which is not good on canning day.
No. Like, I can't imagine what this sort of looks like in the fridge. So, it's quite... I just think it's interesting for people to know that it's not so much just like, oh, that's our favourite design. That looks great. Like, go with that one. There's so many other things to think about along the way.
I was so nervous. I've never been more nervous about canning day than what I was with this one, just because of the gradient. Just the simple fact that it was a gradient and the restrictions that, you know, that style of printing has. And I mean, I'm stoked with how they turned out, but leading right up to it, I was giving Jay lots of like little... You sure we want to do this? You don't want to go back to, you know, there were opportunities.
Oh, we were, at one point, our fallback plan was to go back to just that thick wrap.
Exactly.
A hard print. And we honestly didn't know until probably 6:30 p.m. after being there for nearly 12 hours at Visi that it was actually going to work. Yeah. And it all came down to the Sunset. Because if you look at the DNA of the original cans, it's echoed in the new cans, and that fade is consistent. But to put it into a scale, this project took 18 months. 18 months from start to finish, maybe even a bit more.
Is that right? Is that how? Yeah, it feels.
And it all
like
it came down to a lot of technicality, as we've been talking about. There's also a gut feel. There's a gut feel about the brand, and it just didn't sit right with some of the iterations that we were doing. And when I got that final, yes, this feels right, we then took it to Visi and spent 12 hours. And another scale to give you is that Visi, they're a very big plant, and they do millions of cans per week. They're a 24-hour, 7-day, operation. And to stop to do 30, 60, 90,000 cans for us in a day and get it right, which probably should have taken 4 hours, took 12. It backlogged their production line because they're used to doing millions per week. So it's a very big thing for them. It's a really big thing for us. And for the engineers at Visi that have to get that cloth at the right angle every single time, every iteration after this is almost, it's got to be perfect. Otherwise you'll get blur.
It's next level.
It is next level.
The operation there, isn't it?
And credit to them for...
they're amazing. I'll cover the guys out there. They're very, very patient. I think at one point we heard someone screaming when we wanted to go back on the fade. But beautiful things happened on the day, and I don't know if you can see it in the camera, but there's only 3 colours utilised in the Sunset Haze. But because of the way that Verg has designed the dot artwork, you actually get 2 other colours there. You get this optical illusion of an orange and a purple due to the blend of the yellow and the red hue and the red and the blue, which is really magnificent. And that was a big surprise for all of us on the day. We
were surprised. Yeah, we were really happy when that one came out because we were expecting it to look like really bad. But it was just that legibility of the Sunset Haze that they just upped the white and deepened the yellow, and that then made it pop. So you can read it now. I mean, there's still a couple of things we're probably going to relook at the colour of the IPA. Just maybe go back to that original IPA colour that
more pinky kind of.
Colour. And that will then make that gradient even smoother again.
If you see the transition on the Pale Ale and the XPA, they're very, very nice, elegant transitions. And that's because of the colour of the Pantone orange and the that green. And then if you observe the IPA, just the colour alone creates more of a hard band transition, which is quite interesting to see. We didn't know that until we got it on print, right?
But no, that was one of those projects that was bubbling away in the background for 18 months. Jeez.
You two haven't aged at all in that time.
No. That could be one of many things.
But I think it was nice having, we pretty much had the entire team there on print day.
Yeah, it was a good day.
Yourself and Maddie, everyone was kind of there, and seeing all of that come together in one day was really lovely.
Yeah.
And voila. And we've got, through the magic of editing, this was here all the time, we've got our new 16 can cases here. I've been seeing these little matchbox type little arts and crafts things sitting around the office for about the past 3 months. And I've been wondering, what are
mock-ups.
these? And yeah, they've been the little mock-ups for these cases. So do you want to tell me a little bit about designing these bad boys?
Oh, God. If there's one thing that's worse than designing gradients, it's doing cartons. Cartons have more restrictions around printing than what cans do. And just because of that whole overlapping of colours, and you have to have a bigger sort of separation from those colours. So you can see there on the Sunset Haze where the yellow is, there's a white sort of outline. That's not because there's a key line around the word Sunset Haze. It's because those colours can't butt up against each other. So we decided to focus on just doing single colour because it cuts out all of that, and we focus on that core range colour instead. Obviously for the haze, it wasn't possible to do a gradient. It's just, it looked like a dog's breakfast.
I think we iterated on that quite a lot.
I probably spent a couple of days trying to make it work.
Yeah.
It just didn't. And in the end, we just went, let's just do 3 bands of colour.
I think you said a few 4-letter words when I asked you to go to a solid colour.
Yeah. I think because I suggested that. No, that's right. Yeah. You're right.
Maybe I was the one that suggested it.
Yeah, no, you did.
Beginning.
You did suggest it. I tried to make it work, but it didn't. But look,
it looks good.
It looks really good now, and it represents the 3 colours of the haze. But look, I think having the single colours sort of come to the forefront for it. And,
it represents the brand.
Yeah, and you've got the
in a
Rebel
really
spark.
consistent way. And you couldn't fade, obviously, as we just talked about. But getting behind these, you see this solid orange pale ale. It's reflective of okay, that's the Revel pale ale. And I think it cuts through, and that's what it's all about now: is how do you cut through the noise and get your brand represented, in the forefront of everyone's mind.
Yeah.
And we've been talking about 16 packs as opposed to 24s because I think we all know craft beer is a little bit more expensive, particularly for boutique brewers like us that do indie craft at a small scale. It's very expensive to make it, so the price is premium, but the quality of the product is superior. So going from 24s to 16s just makes it a little bit more of an attractive price point for people, and they can kind of take it home, throw it on the shoulder. It's a bit easier to move around as well.
Yeah.
And it's a trend in the industry, really.
Yeah. No, that was a bit of back and forth with these ones, but again, we got there in the end. And
The 16 box does fit a little bit more conveniently on the back of the postie as well.
yeah.
The 24 box just sort of fits, but the 16 is nice and easy.
And that's the main thing, isn't it?
So you got to take these things into mind
do.
when you're factoring it in.
So keep your eyes peeled. These will be coming out over the coming couple of months. They'll be released in stages, obviously, as the production schedule allows that to occur. So it's your finest indie bottle-o and some of the bigger groups. They'll be seeing them very soon.
And it's just so easy because, if you could fit one 24 over your shoulder, surely you can fit 2 of those 16s over your shoulder like
100%.
that. Makes sense to me.
It does. It makes sense to me right now.